The night was darker than usual, heavy clouds hanging low as the rain tapped gently against the windshield of her car. She hadn't planned to be home this early. In fact, her coworkers had expected her to stay overnight on the trip, but meetings wrapped sooner than expected, and she decided there was no place she'd rather be than home with her loved ones. The thought filled her with a simple, quiet joy, walking through the door, surprising her boyfriend, hearing her daughter's laughter as she wrapped her arms around her mother's waist. Those images danced in her head as she turned onto the familiar street, headlights sweeping across the row of quiet houses. Everything seemed so normal, so ordinary, yet there was a faint weight pressing in on her chest, an unease she couldn't quite explain. The house looked calm as she pulled into the driveway, but the lights inside flickered oddly through the curtains, too bright for this late hour. She frowned, her brow tightening, but dismissed it as nothing more than her daughter forgetting to switch them off. Still, she couldn't shake the sense that the air itself felt different, like a silence waiting to be broken. As she stepped out, the cool wind brushed her face, carrying with it the faint sound of something. Was it laughter? Or was it crying? She paused at the front steps, keys in hand, heart thrumming faster. She smiled faintly, shaking her head, telling herself she was only imagining things. But deep down, she knew tonight would not be like any other night. As she slid the key into the lock, she froze. The front door was already ajar, just slightly, as if someone had carelessly left it that way. Her stomach tightened. He was meticulous about locking doors, especially at night. Slowly, she pushed it open, the faint creak echoing through the quiet house. The lights in the living room were on, casting a yellow glow across the hallway, too harsh against the midnight stillness. Something about it felt unnatural, as though the home she knew so well had shifted into unfamiliar territory. She stepped inside carefully, heels clicking softly against the wooden floor before she instinctively slipped them off to avoid making noise. Her ears picked up on faint sounds, muffled and uneven. At first, she thought it might be the TV left running, but as she stood still, holding her breath, she realized it wasn't dialogue or music, it was something else. A mix of hushed voices, one low and strained, the other high-pitched, broken, like sobbing. Her pulse quickened. The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly as she took slow, deliberate steps, the faint smell of cologne hitting her nose. His cologne, but stronger than usual, as if he had just doused himself in it. The air felt warmer, heavier, almost suffocating. Every instinct screamed at her that something wasn't right, but she pressed forward, compelled by both dread and determination. Her hand brushed against the wall, steadying herself as she approached the living room. Shadows shifted under the crack of the door, moving unnaturally, as though multiple people were inside. She swallowed hard, her throat dry, each step pulling her closer to the unknown. With every inch, suspense tightened around her chest, her entire body bracing for whatever truth waited beyond that thin, fragile barrier of wood. The sound hit her like a dagger, soft, broken sobs, unmistakably her daughter's. At first, she froze, her mind refusing to believe what her ears were telling her. Her little girl's cries weren't just whimpers from a bad dream, they were heavy, raw, and laced with fear. A mother knows the difference. Her breath caught in her throat as she pressed her back against the wall, straining to listen, her heart hammering so violently it nearly drowned out the sound itself. Why was her daughter awake at this hour? And why, above all else, was he here? He wasn't supposed to be. He had told her he was going out with friends, that he'd be back late, if at all. She remembered brushing it off earlier, already too tired to argue, but now, standing there in the dark, the lie stung. Confusion spiraled into something darker, something sharper. The muffled sobs grew clearer the closer she crept. Every step felt like moving through quicksand, her legs trembling beneath her. Her instincts screamed for her to rush in, to gather her child into her arms, but suspicion anchored her down. What was happening? What could possibly be making her baby cry in her boyfriend's presence? She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms, fighting back the urge to storm through the door. Her mind churned with possibilities, none of them good. The warmth of the house now felt like a trap, each creak of the floorboards beneath her feet feeding her dread. Maternal instinct burned in her chest, demanding she act, yet fear whispered in her ear, urging her to wait, to watch, to know before she confronted. Torn between the two, she inched closer to the living room, the sound of her daughter's tears growing louder, slicing her heart open with every note. Her breath caught as she pushed the door open, the hinges groaning far louder than usual, slicing through the tense silence of the house. The scene that greeted her seared itself into her mind instantly. Her little girl, face streaked with tears, sitting on the couch, her tiny hands clenched in her lap as if she were trying to make herself smaller, invisible. And there he was, her boyfriend, standing far too close, his expression unreadable, his body stiffening the moment he realized she was there. The room seemed to close in on her. The warm yellow light of the lamp suddenly felt harsh, exposing every detail in brutal clarity. The glistening tracks of tears on her daughter's cheeks, the awkward, guilty way his shoulders squared, the stillness of the air as though the entire house was holding its breath. For a split second, time fractured. She couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even fully comprehend what she was seeing. A storm of emotions collided inside her chest. Fear gripped her first, sharp, ice-cold fear that twisted her stomach. Then rage, hot and blinding, surged up to drown it out, pounding through her veins like fire. Her heart thudded so violently that she thought both of them might hear it. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, to tear him away from her child, but disbelief shackled her. Was this really happening? Could it be what it looked like? Her daughter's watery eyes flicked up, wide and searching, filled with a mixture of relief and shame. That single look broke something inside her. It told her more than words ever could. The girl's lips trembled, but no sound came out, only more tears spilled as she clutched at the hem of her dress like a lifeline. He, on the other hand, stood frozen, his hands half raised as though caught mid-explanation, or excuse. His eyes darted toward her, then away, unable to hold her gaze for more than a second. The silence between them was unbearable, weighted with everything unspoken. His posture screamed guilt, yet his mouth opened and closed soundlessly, as if words had abandoned him. The air felt electric, charged with violence and dread. Every breath burned in her lungs as she took a trembling step inside, her entire body quaking. The house that once felt like a safe haven now felt like a stranger, its walls watching, its shadows stretching. The only sound was her daughter's soft sobs, each one cutting deeper, each one demanding that she act. In that moment, she knew, whatever this was, whatever she had walked into, it had shattered their world forever. He finally broke the suffocating silence with a shaky laugh, the kind people force when they're caught red-handed and scrambling for control. "Babe, listen, it's not what it looks like," he stammered, his palms raised as though trying to shield himself from her fury. His voice wavered, yet underneath, there was a slickness, a rehearsed quality, like he'd said these words before in other contexts, to other people. Her eyes narrowed, her voice low and trembling with both fear and fury. "Then tell me what it looks like. Why is she crying? Why are you here when you weren't supposed to be?" He shifted from one foot to the other, his jaw tightening. She was just upset, that's all. Kids cry, you know that. I was comforting her, making sure she was okay until you got back. His tone was defensive now, layered with false indignation. Her daughter's quiet sniffles filled the air, punctuating the weight of the moment. She stepped closer, glaring at him. Comforting her? Then why can't she even look at you? Why is she trembling? His composure cracked for a second, his eyes darting toward the child before snapping back to her. He licked his lips nervously, trying to twist the narrative. "You're overreacting. You come home early, see a kid crying, and suddenly I'm the villain? Maybe you should ask yourself why she's so emotional instead of pointing the finger at me." The words hit her like poison. Gaslighting, manipulation, it was all there in his tone. But his voice faltered just slightly, betraying something he desperately wanted to keep hidden. The way he avoided her gaze, the way his fists clenched at his sides, the way he leaned on excuses instead of answers. Every detail screamed that there was more, something darker, behind his presence here tonight. The little girl's voice trembled as she wiped at her wet cheeks, her tiny hands shaking so badly that the gesture looked almost painful. She avoided looking at the boyfriend and instead turned her wide, tear-filled eyes toward her mother, clinging to her presence like a lifeline. "Mommy," she whispered, the word breaking into a sob. "I didn't want him here. I told him I wanted you, but he wouldn't leave." Her mother's chest tightened, her breath catching in her throat. Every syllable was like a knife, delicate, fragile, yet cutting deep. She crouched down to meet her daughter's gaze, gently brushing her trembling fingers along the girl's hair. "It's okay, baby. Tell me everything. Mommy's here now. Nobody's going to hurt you." The girl's words tumbled out in bursts, each one weighted with fear. "He said not to tell you. He said it would make you mad if I cried too much. I wanted to go to my room, but he kept telling me to sit with him. I didn't like it, Mommy. I didn't like it." Her voice broke, dissolving into fresh sobs, her small body curling inward with shame and confusion. The woman felt fire rising in her veins, her blood pounding so loudly in her ears it drowned out the boyfriend's sharp intake of breath. She pulled her daughter close, cradling her against her chest, torn between the need to protect and the rage that demanded an outlet. "You're safe now. You did the right thing telling me," she whispered, though her eyes never left the man standing in the room, his face tightening, his excuses withering under the child's words. Inside her mind, thoughts clashed violently. Comfort her daughter, shield her from the fear. But also, demand answers, confront him, make him pay for daring to step into their home, into their lives, and stain their trust. She could feel her daughter's tiny heart racing against her chest, its rhythm syncing with her own fury. The innocence in her daughter's confession tore her apart, leaving her caught between the gentleness of motherhood and the ferocity of a lioness ready to strike. The truth, raw and unfiltered, had finally surfaced, not from him, but from the one voice she trusted most. And now, there was no turning back. Her arms tightened protectively around her daughter as she rose to her feet, her eyes locked on the man she had once trusted. The air between them was so charged it felt like static before a storm, every breath shallow, every second threatening to erupt. "Tell me the truth," she said, her voice low but trembling with fury. "Right now. Why are you here with her, without me knowing?" The boyfriend lifted his hands defensively, his voice a rushed, uneven mess. "You're overreacting. I was just trying to calm her down. She was crying, I didn't know what else to do. Don't twist this into something it's not." Her laugh was sharp, humorless, jagged with rage. "Twist this? You think I'm twisting it? I walk into my own home, hear my baby crying, and find you here, uninvited, behind closed doors, while she's terrified. You don't get to tell me I'm twisting anything." He tried to step closer, his tone growing slick, almost pleading. "You've been stressed, working too much. Maybe she just missed you, maybe she misunderstood. Kids imagine things, you know how they are." Her voice rose like a whip, cutting through his excuses. "Don't you dare blame her. Don't you dare stand there and tell me my daughter imagined the fear in her own eyes." Her daughter whimpered softly against her side, and it only fueled her resolve. His mask of calm slipped, frustration breaking through. "You're making me into a monster when all I've ever done is try to be here for you both." The woman's eyes blazed. "A monster? That's your word, not mine. But you know what monsters do? They hide in shadows, they manipulate, they make the innocent feel unsafe. So maybe you're right." Her voice shook with emotion, yet it carried the weight of absolute certainty. For a moment, silence hung like a blade between them. He looked at her, jaw tight, eyes darting as if searching for some angle, some crack in her armor. But she stood unmoving, her body a shield around her child, her spirit unyielding. "You've lost me," she whispered fiercely, though her voice carried like a scream. "And if you think for 1 second, I'll let you twist this into anything other than what it is. Betrayal. You're a fool." Her words struck harder than any physical blow, leaving him exposed, stripped of power, his attempts at control crumbling. For the first time, the balance between them shifted. She was no longer questioning, no longer doubting. She was demanding. And he had no ground left to stand on. Her chest rose and fell with heavy breaths as she looked from her trembling daughter to the man standing across the room. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to make a choice, a final one. She had endured excuses, endured doubt, endured moments of questioning her own instincts, but not anymore. Tonight, everything crystallized into a single truth. Her daughter's safety came before anything else, before love, before loyalty, before the man she once believed she knew. "I'm not asking again," she said, her voice low, deliberate, and steady now. "You're done here. Leave this house. Leave my life. Right now." Her tone carried the weight of a verdict, and even the little girl seemed to straighten, sensing the power in her mother's resolve. The boyfriend's face contorted, desperation slipping through the cracks of his practiced composure. He stepped forward, palms open as if begging for mercy. "Please, listen to me. You're blowing this out of proportion. You'll regret it if you push me away like this. I love you both." His voice cracked on the last word, but his eyes betrayed something darker, panic at losing control. She didn't flinch. "No. What I'll regret is if I ever let you near my daughter again." Her words sliced through him, and for the first time, he faltered. His shoulders slumped, his confidence draining, leaving behind only a man who knew he had lost. The power dynamic had shifted completely. He was no longer in control. She was. Tears burned her eyes, but they didn't weaken her. They only made her stronger. She hugged her daughter tighter and whispered, almost to herself but loud enough for him to hear. "My decision is final. She comes first. Always." The silence that followed was deafening. He stood frozen, unable to argue, unable to twist her words anymore. He knew, deep down, there was nothing left to salvage. For the first time in a long time, she felt unshakable certainty. The choice was painful, but it was hers, and it was right. She pulled her daughter close, feeling the child's tiny frame press against her chest, the shaking breath slowly calming as the warmth of her embrace offered comfort. Stroking her hair, she whispered softly, "You're safe now. I promise, I'll never let anything hurt you again." The words weren't just for her daughter, they were a vow, a declaration etched into her own soul. Tonight had stripped away illusions, but it had also revealed the strength she never knew she had. The living room still carried traces of chaos, an overturned cushion, the lingering echo of raised voices, but in her arms was all that mattered. Love, unconditional and fierce, radiated through her, stronger than betrayal, stronger than fear. She had once thought love meant compromise, forgiveness, sacrifice at her own expense. But now she understood, true love was protection, honesty, and unwavering loyalty. Anything less was poison. Her thoughts drifted for a moment to the man she had once trusted, to the promises he had made and broken. Pain stabbed at her chest, but it was quickly replaced by clarity. Betrayal no longer defined her. She would not carry his lies into her future. Instead, she would carry lessons. Hard, painful but transformative. She had faced deception and walked through it stronger. Looking down at her daughter's tear-streaked face, she smiled gently. "We'll start fresh," she said, her voice soft yet certain. "No more shadows. No more fear. Just us, moving forward." In her heart, she knew the road ahead would not be easy, but it would be theirs, free of manipulation, filled with resilience, and open to hope. And with that, the night's horrors began to fade, replaced by a quiet strength that whispered of a new beginning.